Guys, that's my new tagline. I'm putting it on a t-shirt. That was it. With autonomy must come advocacy. Because if you start to become really autonomous, you're operating your book of work by yourself, you're able to lean in and really deliver a lot of great things. Your boss is going to forget about you because they know, oh, Kendall's great. She's got it. I don't have to worry about her. They stop investing in you. They stop advocating for you. Your career progression slows. So as you become more autonomous, you must also learn the art of self-advocacy. Now, this is not required for you to continue to progress your career, but this is a Kendall requirement for you to not get stuck, because at some point you will have a boss who is not paying attention. Or you have a boss who thinks it's great how hard you work. They can take credit for it and they don't have to pay attention. Welcome back to this episode of Secrets of the Career Game. So many people are trying to navigate a corporate world that is laden with secrets, cleverly hidden, and unspoken rules to a game that most employees don't even know that they're playing. On this podcast, we try to give you a peek behind the curtains and some tips and tricks to ultimately make you successful in your career and help you progress a little bit faster. Welcome back, my lovelies. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about the skills required in order to make various jumps over the course of your career. So this topic is very highly requested by clients who go through my program and followers on social media. In fact, 2 years ago, we did an entire series on TikTok and Instagram where we talked about all of the different jumps to all of the different levels in corporate, what skills are required, how to market yourself. And it was one of the first things that I did when my business was really taking off. So today we're doing a throwback and we're going to talk about how over time and over the course of your career progression, the skills you need to display and the way that you need to display those skills changes in order to optimize for your fastest growth. So we'll go in order as best I can with ADHD, and then we'll kind of circle back on a few topics. So when you're starting out your career, the most important thing is to prove that you are capable, that you are willing to learn new things, and that you follow through on your commitments and meet your requirements. Great. So when you are first starting out, you don't know anything. I don't care what you studied in school and how relevant it was or not relevant. Your first job is a huge learning ground. This is why so many companies now won't even hire you fresh out of school. Instead, they say you have to have 3 years work experience to be hired. It's because that first job teaches you business etiquette. It teaches you communication. It teaches you meeting timelines. It teaches you autonomy. There's a lot that you learn in that first role. And moving from, like, let's say an associate to a senior associate, the biggest jump there is that you've proven your capability, your technical acumen, and your ability to follow through on your commitments. That's really it. Okay. This is why people get a false sense of security that their boss is going to notice how hard they're working and promote them. Because in your very first job, your boss probably does notice your hard work and promote you from an associate to a senior associate. After that, that kind of goes away. But that very first jump is generally hard work proven, right? Doesn't necessarily mean working long hours, doesn't necessarily mean overtime, but it does mean having business acumen, ability to follow through on your commitments and to learn new things. Okay, so that's that first job. That's the first skill that you're displaying. Once you get into senior associate, senior analyst, whatever the level is, where the next jump is to middle management, right? So we're moving from an individual contributor to a management role. If not with direct reports, then at least that seniority. So proving that you're capable of making the jump from an individual contributor to a manager is the first big hurdle in your career because the skill sets are different. So one of the biggest things that you have to be able to display at that level is autonomy, which means you're not requiring constant direction from your boss in order to get things done. You're able to think for yourself, come up with ideas, manage projects from start to finish, and really ultimately have ownership of your space that doesn't require as much handholding as, say, when you're in an individual contributor role. So when you're looking to make that jump to middle management, autonomy is a huge part of that. Now, with autonomy must come self-advocacy. Guys, that's my new tagline. I'm putting it on a t-shirt. That was it. With autonomy must come advocacy. Because if you start to become really autonomous, you're operating your book of work by yourself, you're able to lean in and really deliver a lot of great things. Your boss is going to forget about you because they know, oh, Kendall's great. She's got it. I don't have to worry about her. They stop investing in you. They stop advocating for you. Your career progression slows. So as you become more autonomous, You must also learn the art of self-advocacy. Now, this is not required for you to continue to progress your career, but this is a Kendall requirement for you to not get stuck, because at some point you will have a boss who is not paying attention. Or you have a boss who thinks it's great how hard you work. They can take credit for it and they don't have to pay attention. One of those two things will occur. Okay. So as you become more autonomous, you have to also build that advocacy, that willingness to talk about what you're doing, the impact it has to the company, and your ability to translate the work you're doing into business success. So this is the second big thing that you're learning in order to become capable for middle management. And this lesson also goes through as you're in middle management. So this is going to be more of like an ongoing growth item. It's not necessarily required for your jump, but is how is the work you're doing relevant to the company goals and objectives, to what you're trying to accomplish, to the overall success. And this is where you start to wear your CEO hat, right? If I ran a business that was my team, here's how I would run it. Here's what resources I would need. Here's what KPIs I would track. Here's how I would measure success, right? Your CEO hat starts to come on in that senior associate to manager level because you've built that autonomy. You've now got your own scope and you're running it optimally. Okay, so autonomy is the big first thing that you have to be able to prove in order to jump into management. If your company requires that all manager levels must manage people, this is the biggest sticking point that I see for people's progression is their boss says, well, I can't promote you to manager. You've never managed anybody. And you're like, great. How would I manage anybody without being a manager? So if you could just answer that, that would be great. Okay. All the time I hear that feedback. And most people get frustrated. And what they do is they spiral and they say, well, I'm never going to manage anybody if they won't promote me to manager. So they either get frustrated and they leave, or they stop trying, or any combination of the above. Okay. Huge thank you to today's sponsor for our episode, Symposia Academia. They assist individuals to get into cybersecurity, and you do not need a degree or any prior work experience. They'll help you land a GRC analyst position in cybersecurity with their 4-step process, which includes training, an internship, interview preparation, and then on-the-job support. In order to get started, go ahead and head over to the link www.symposia.com/channel-partner/KB-3. You can also find this link down in the show notes, but again, it is symposia.com/channel-partner/KB-3, and check them out. What you're going to do if your company requires managers to manage people is you're going to get a mentee or an intern. Step 1. Okay. Having a mentee teaches you coaching. It teaches you management skills. It allows you to help somebody progress and grow themselves. So if you're a senior associate, find an associate who you can help, who you can train, who you can give feedback, who you can support, right? Get an intern. If your company does internships, I would love an intern for the summer. And your boss goes, what would they work on? Again, CEO hat, they could run this project that I would love to get done, be a good, meaty opportunity for them, but also get me some more bandwidth to work on these other things, right? Get an intern, make a business case for it, ask your boss. So mentorship, interns, or manage a large culture-focused project. So this is not exactly a one-to-one of people management, but it is. So I was about to say project managers have it easy. That's not true. That's not true. But the benefit that being in a project management role has is you're constantly managing other people through influence, right? Maybe they don't report to you, but you have to influence them to get things done. And getting those things done is really important to the success of your job. When you are trying to prove you have manager abilities without managing anybody directly, influence without authority is your number one opportunity to do this. This is why mentorship is important. This is why internship is important. If there is a culture project, so there's a big event that your women's BRG hosts, or there is a town hall that gets coordinated by a group of people, volunteering to run and be a part of those events proves that you can manage people, manage a budget, oversee and execute on a project, that you have enough tracking and organization to do it well. The jump that I made personally from senior associate to manager came exclusively from running culture projects. So I'd never managed a person, but I was really, really good at running events. So I ran town halls, I ran mixers, I was involved in the culture council. And when I got promoted to a manager, my first management job had 9 direct reports. I went from 0 to 9. Okay. So it's possible to use culture to do that. right? So those are your three best avenues to showcase to your boss, hey, I have management capabilities, even though I've never managed anybody. I've had an intern, I've mentored these people, I've led these giant projects that involved influencing a large group of people without authority. Okay, those are your ways. So autonomy, proving that you're capable of managing. Those are the two biggest skills that you need to make the jump from senior associate to manager. So we've talked about a lot of ways where you can use opportunities within your current company to showcase those skills to your boss or to your leadership. But what do you do if you want to get promoted, but you want to do it externally? A few thoughts. So one, generally, it is easier to get promoted internally and then move laterally externally than it is to make a jump and an external move, generally. Okay, that being said, multiple times in my career, I have jumped and moved companies at the same time. It's totally possible. It's just getting promoted can be with the right manager easier. Okay. But say you're like, hey, I've been a senior associate for 4 years. My boss is a jerk. They're not listening to me. Or I've had 6 bosses in the last 5 years. I hear that all the time. I've had 6 bosses in the last 5 years. I'm never going to get promoted with this much change. Super, super valid. I need to get a manager job and I need to do it externally. Few things. One, your resume needs to read as if you are already a manager. I've mentored these people. I've had 4 interns who delivered these projects. I managed and oversaw. Manage and oversaw should be a bullet, the start of a bullet on your resume if you're applying for manager positions. Managed and oversaw. Managed and oversaw culture event that hosted 2,000 team members in partnership with 7 team members across the organization, blah, 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 whatever, right? So in your resume, you need to be managing and overseeing. You need to be talking about your mentees. You need to be talking about your interns. You need your resume to read as though you are already a manager. And your title at the top, if you do a title at the top of your resume, some people save it and they put it in their roles. I do a title at the top of my resume, personal preference. If you have a title at the top of your resume, it says manager. It doesn't say senior associate of IT production. Okay. It says manager. In your roles, we're not going to lie and say we were a manager when we weren't a manager. That's not cool. There is an exception to that though. I said that, but now I'm going to say there's an exception. The exception to changing your title is when you are operating at a level that is much higher than your actual seniority. We're going to talk about this more as we get closer to the director level, but say you are operating as a director. You have a huge team that you manage, you oversee a large scope, you oversee a large budget, you have lots of tenure, but your company's title is a manager, but all of your peers are directors and your work scope is a directorship and the size of your team equates to a director. I'm cool with you changing your resume title to director. DGAF. The reason for that is when a company validates your employment, they cannot validate your title. Now, there's some nuance here, right? I work in financial services. Financial services is a really small world. They probably know somebody you work with. Theoretically, they could call them and say, what's Kendall's title? There's one time in the thousands of clients I've worked with where anybody ever did that. So take that with a grain of salt. But that is the only time where you should be changing your title is when your acting workload is different than your title represents, right? My title internally at my company, theoretically, is chief of staff. But I manage $200 million in budget spend. I oversee a team of 6 directs, but broader influence of an organization of over 700. I'm working with leadership teams. I wouldn't put chief of staff on my resume because most chief of staff jobs don't have anything to do with what I'm doing. My title is director of planning and execution for the same reason that what I'm doing and what my technical internal title is are not actually the same thing. And it's just because they don't have anybody else like me in the company. So they were like, closest thing we've got, chief of staff, which is fine, right? And even my email signature internally in my company says director of planning and execution because that's what I am. So there are some nuances where you can change your title, but I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too far. Maybe we'll do a separate episode on that. But when you are looking to make the jump from a senior associate to a manager or a senior individual contributor to a management position, your resume needs to read as if you are already a manager. Okay, that's one piece. The second piece is the way you interact on LinkedIn should be as if you are already a manager. You are congratulating people on their new jobs. You are commenting and interacting with people's content. If you are posting, it's something impactful. Hey, look at this great project that our team just delivered that got a patent. things like that. Okay. People underestimate the power of LinkedIn. I don't work for LinkedIn, I'm not a LinkedIn spokesperson, right? But for all of my clients who are looking for new jobs, who are advocating for themselves in new roles, a lot of that comes down to awareness and name recognition. And a lot of that is built through LinkedIn. So you want to be carrying yourself as if you're a manager on LinkedIn, right? Don't be posting funny memes on LinkedIn instead of congratulating your coworker on their new promotion, right? Simple stuff. Second way is you should be showing up on LinkedIn as a manager. And the third way is when you are interviewed, you need to be confident in your managerial capacities. I see so many people who are like, I'm ready for a management role. Why aren't I a manager? And then we do a mock interview and I say, so talk to me about your management experience. And they go, well, technically I've never managed anybody. Does that make me want to hire you into a management role? No. Say, while I've never had a direct team reporting to me, I've definitely flexed my managerial muscles and learned a lot about myself in the process. I had 3 mentees last year, as well as 2 summer interns who I was able to guide through XYZ process to deliver these results, also ultimately resulting in the promotion of 2 of the associates that I was mentoring. When I think of myself as a manager, my management style would be to lead from the front, have empathy, be servant leader, but also empower my teams to really deliver to the best of their skill sets. That's why I'm looking forward to stepping into a manager role. Be prepared. They're going to ask. If you've never managed a team, the hiring manager is not stupid. They're going to figure that out. And you need to have an answer ready for like, hey, what is your management experience? You've never been a manager before. How do you feel stepping into this role? Be prepared to give them a really good reason to want to hire you. It's that simple. So if you do those 3 things, your resume reads like you're a manager, your LinkedIn reads like you're a manager, and you're prepared to answer the questions about how you haven't been a manager, but you're applying for a manager position, those 3 things are going to lock in your chances of progressing your career and getting that jump to that external company. So then you get a middle management. And manager to senior manager is a similar promotion type to associate to senior associate, right? You're showcasing that you can manage more scope, that you are an effective manager, that people on your team are getting promoted, that you're delivering the business results, you're building that business results pipeline that we talked about earlier, where now you're able to articulate the work your team is doing, not just in terms of the tasks, but also in terms of the impact they have on the business, right? All of this helps you slide into that senior manager-ish level. Now, some companies, so financial services is odd. Most financial services companies go senior manager to vice president and then vice president to director. Other companies go senior manager to director and then VP is higher, okay? If your company goes senior manager to VP, it is a similar chain. It's that similar growth in business results, autonomy, ability to manage a larger scope, same growth. Okay. VP is not as much of a differential if that's the order in which your company promotes. It's kind of like a senior manager, right? The jump to director, regardless of your company, if your company goes VP to director or your company goes senior manager to director, the jump to director takes you from being a manager to being a leader. This, in my personal opinion, is the hardest jump to make in corporate. After you hit director, all jumps slow down because there's just fewer positions. You're waiting for somebody to leave. You have to have a really large scope. It requires a reorg generally. So after you hit director, promotions slow down pretty significantly, regardless of what company that you're at. But the progression is a little more natural. Once you got to the director level, they know you're a leader. They know you're capable. You've got that growth path in front of you, unless you mess it up. Separate issue. That jump to that director title is so challenging. And I see so many of my clients get stuck here. The only jump that I think could be harder is the jump out of VP directorship into a chief. That would be a challenging jump as well. And we'll get to that in a minute. But when you're trying to jump to director, the skill set of a director is a visionary, is a leader, and is a protector. Last one's kind of Kendall's opinion, but we'll get into that. The skills you have to display to hit that director level is not just, hey, I've done the work. Hey, I can manage the team. I can manage a scope. Great. That's what senior managers do. It is, I am able to, out of nothing, create a vision for where my team is going, a strategy for how we're going to get there, and an execution plan that aligns with that within our budget. There are very few opportunities to do that as a senior manager. It's really, really hard to prove that you have a skill that you don't have the opportunity to exercise when you're a senior manager. Okay. But to be a director, You are responsible for the trajectory and direction of your organization, no matter the size. And so it becomes really critical that you're able to articulate, how do you drive an organization forward? How do you establish a vision and a mission? How do you carry a strategy through to completion? And the mistake I see a lot of senior managers make is they think, well, I'm managing my team, I'm getting all my stuff done, I should be a director. No, you have not displayed your ability to lead a team forward. I'll talk about how to do that in a second. So the first one is that visionary. Second is the leadership. In my opinion, if you are a senior manager and nobody in your organization gets promoted during your tenure as a senior manager, you are not ready to be a director. Similarly, if nobody gets fired while you are a senior manager, you are not ready to be a director. Reason being, as a director, even as a senior manager, your responsibility is the well-being and progression of your overall team. This means you have to be able to be honest with yourself and your employees when they need constructive feedback or when they're not operating up to scale. You need to understand the process of performance managing someone, of coaching them out. And you need to understand the process of getting somebody promoted, which requires advocating for them, building their network, establishing their growth plan and their development plan. If you have not done these things as a people leader, then you're just managing them. You're just managing their tasks, making sure it gets done. Anybody can do that. Maybe not anybody, but lots of people. A leader is somebody who is growing their team, taking them with them. A leader is somebody who's involved in the culture of their organization. And so that jump to director requires displaying those leadership skills. Even the negative ones, like, hey, I have to let somebody in my team go, tells your boss that you legitimately care about the performance of your team and you're tracking things. All right. I have had to fire people in almost every role I've ever had since I became a manager. I'm trying to think if there are any where I didn't. There's one where I didn't, but it started as an IC role where I hired people. So I got to hire people. They were my people. The reason for that is not because I'm one of those people who comes in and is like, oh, this team is terrible, let's clean house. It's because I have found that most managers do not manage and lead their people. They just manage the workload. And so when new leaders come in who are true leaders, they look at the organization and they were like, how is this person still here? And everybody goes, oh, we just don't give them anything. I've had managers I've taken over their team where they have told me, oh, just don't give anything to this person. They won't do it right. Why are they still here? Okay, so there's people leadership part. And then the last part, in my opinion, is you need to be able to and willing to protect your people. This means that you are a point of escalation and resolution for your team. My team can handle lots of things by themselves. They're highly capable. They're great, really good leaders. We're building really strong individual contributors in our organization. They can handle a lot by themselves, but they know somebody cops an attitude on a call, somebody refuses to get them what they need. Their first call is me. Kendall, I need your help on this situation. I hate to bring you into this, but I've tried everything. That's where I come in. And my job is to protect them from the politics higher than their organization levels, right? If there's infighting and scope stealing and reworks happening at the top of the house, that's not their problem. That's my problem. I handle that. I manage that. I'm that protector up, but I'm also that escalation resolution down. Meaning if they have issues, my job is to step in and say, hey, I understand why you need this. This is really important. I need you to get this to my team by this date. And I'm that path where I'm okay being the bad guy. I'm okay if somebody doesn't like me. You don't have to like me. Lots of people don't like me. Okay. But I am that person for my team. And I can tell you, my boss, I always CYA if I'm in a escalation resolution role, right? Hey, this person copped an attitude with my team. I'm now having a one-on-one to handle that. Am I CYAing to my boss? Sure. Hey, just so you know, I had to have a conversation with this individual. There were some issues with them being responsive to the team. I think we've ironed it out, but just want you to be aware in case it comes up to you. I'm protecting myself upwards, but I will handle that. That is my job. And I can tell you that my boss has come to me and said, it's wonderful to see how much you lean in to protect your team. And that's my job. So I would say those are the three big pieces of what you're trying to display if you're ready to be for the director level: your visionary ability, your leadership capability, and your protector status. Right? Now, for the visionary strategy piece, this is the one where I see most people get tripped up. When you are a manager, senior manager, individual contributor, IC, you can go to your boss and be like, hey, I want to do this. And your boss goes, cool. Or they go, no. And you move on with your life. Right? It's a very transactional situation. But when you start to get closer to that director level, it becomes a lot about optionality. This is something I teach all the time in my course. I've talked about it on other podcast episodes. Optionality becomes about strategy and it becomes about problem solving. So the way that I structure most of my asks to my boss are not, hey, this thing's going on. This is what I want to do. I say, hey, we have a problem statement. Here's a one pager of what that problem statement is. I think we have a few options on how we could solve it. We could do nothing. Here's what happens. We could fix it. Here's what happens. Or we could do something in between where maybe we fix the biggest parts, but we leave these other pieces alone. And here's what happens with that. And then here's the cost of each or the resource requirement of each. Which would you like to move forward with? When you start to think that way, again, we have that CEO hat on. We're providing optionality for different solutions for problems. Then we say, great, here's the direction of where I want to take the team in order to solve this. Here's our roadmap. Here's what we're trying to deliver. Here's the long-term plan, right? So when I took over my current team and I came in, the number one thing I knew we needed was automation, right? We weren't capable. We didn't have a single automation skill in our team. Did not exist. So the very first year I was in role, I was hiring, letting go of the people who were underperforming. I was bringing in resources who I knew were capable, and I was creating the structure that I was going to need to enact the plan that I was going to have. And then we created our strategy. And our strategy was a 3-year roadmap partnered with a strategy of where our team was going and the excellence that we wanted to offer, and then a tactical execution plan of what it took to get there. And the number one center of all of that was automation. We have to automate as much of our BAU tasks so we can go deliver all this other stuff that I think is more important. And when I first rolled out that strategy, everybody was like, well, this sounds great, but good luck. There's no way you're going to do that. But displaying that I had that vision, here's where the team's going to go. Here's the automation. Nobody believed me. Lots of people had come in with visions before in my role. And I was like, I'm ready. So 2 months ago, our first 3-year roadmap came to a completion. And we shared out all of the ways we had automated and scaled within our business to the COO, to our chief technology officer. And they were like, wow, this is a lot. How do we roll this out across the entire company? I'm like, I'm so glad you asked. I'm ready because that's strategy number 2. How do we elevate this across the whole company, right? So when you step into that director, you have to be able to show that you can think further ahead than completing the next task. You can think further ahead about your strategy and direction of where you're taking the team. And you can think about resourcing requests that go with that. Big mistake senior managers make is they never ask for people and they just work their people to death. If you need people, you need people. Hey, I'm happy to do that work. It requires a trade-off, either not by not doing this other thing or by adding people. Which one would you prefer? Right? Optionality, starting to introduce us. So those are some of the ways you can display you're ready for a directorship to your manager. Now, if again, you're looking to make a directorship jump external to your company, it's really going to be the same 3 things we talk about with manager, but your resume needs to read as if you are already director. What strategies have you proposed? What visions have you created? How have you led your team forward? What have you done to protect and guide your team? What have you successfully impacted on the business results side? That is how your resume reads when you are a director. It doesn't read, managed a team of 16 people in order to oversee production operationalization. It doesn't read like that. That's a senior manager resume. A director created and developed a vision in order to increase automation across all business units, resulting in a $350 million efficiency save over 3 years. That's what a director does, right? So think about how do you phrase your work in terms of that directorship level responsibility that you want. The second piece is that leadership piece, right? How do we bring that into your resume? Led my team through 3 promotion cycles, resulting in 2 managers moving up. That's great. That's a huge win. As somebody who cares about culture, I love that when I'm interviewing. And then for the protector piece, that piece probably doesn't come through as much in your resume, but it's shown in your business results. My team was able to deliver XYZ under my leadership. So that's how your resume is written. LinkedIn, you need to read like a director. You have a director level summary of who you are. You have a director level title under your picture, not necessarily director title, but capable of delivering these things, right? And you're interacting and posting on LinkedIn. 1% of the population does this. If you do this, I swear it makes it easier. Okay. And then for the interview, when they say, well, you're managing a team of 6 people right now, but you're interviewing for this director level, what makes you feel you're ready for this? Be ready. Based on what you've shared so far about the role and what I've read in the job description, it seems to me like something that you guys could use is a vision for how to take this part of the organization forward. This is something that I've done a lot in my current role, where I was able to make these impacts by driving my team forward towards this strategy that we've been executing for the last 3 years. I'd love to do something similar within your organization. And while the people count might be higher, I feel highly capable, given my leadership skills in my current role, that I would be able to scale that with my organization, provided I have the right resource structure in place. Be ready. Okay. They're going to ask. Don't act like, oh, well, maybe they won't ask about why I feel I'm ready for a director role. And even if they don't ask, every answer you give should point to all the ways you're ready to be a director. Not all the ways you're great at your job. Not all the ways you've done all this technical things. Not all the ways that you've made sure your team that is being managed is delivering stuff on time. How are you leading? How are you a visionary? How are you protecting and guiding your people? If you can hit on those 3 things in the interview, you'll get it. But your resume has to read that way so you can get in the door. And then your your interview skills need to be on point. So that's the jump to director. Now, like I had said, once you hit director, things kind of slow down. And this is just because there's fewer roles, frankly, right? Once you get to director, your company may have 100 directors. I don't care. But within your niche, within your space, there's probably 5, max 6 roles that you think you're capable of doing that are more senior than your director level. So then you're waiting for people to retire. You're waiting for reorgs to happen. You're growing your scope, hoping that maybe you can get promoted in role and create some new type of division if your company's in a growth mode. Things just move slower. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're not incentivized to keep working. It doesn't necessarily mean that your career is not progressing. Now, if you start to hit 5-6 year mark and we're still struggling to make that senior director jump, that's when we want to start playing the game a little more, focusing more on your network, those types of things. But things are going to slow down higher than the director level. And the next big jump is to that chief level. And a chief level becomes very little about what you're capable of doing and almost everything about who you know. And I'm being honest. Yes, there are chiefs who get promoted because they're great at their jobs. Then they knew somebody who referred them for something, and here we are. But almost always, it's because their COO, when they were a VP, is now the CEO of some other company and brought them with them to be the COO. Almost always. So once you hit that director level, your number one priority is building, establishing, and maintaining your network. That is it. Because they need to like you. They need to know what you're capable of. You need to have your self-advocacy on point, and you need to have people who are willing to go to bat for you. Now, this isn't to say that you can be shit at your job and end up a chief role long-term. It happens, but it's not supposed to happen, right? You still need to be great at your job. You still need to be leading. You need to be a visionary. You need to be managing your people, protecting them effectively. All those things need to be true. But if you don't have a network of people who think you're awesome, who are willing to go to bat for you, you will never hit the chief level. This is the only role, chief level positions are the only role where I advocate having an MBA, and it has nothing to do with having an MBA. And it has everything to do with if you take an MBA in person and you meet somebody who becomes a CEO later, now you know somebody. That's what it comes down to. So be investing in your network at those executive levels. Yes, it comes down to articulating your scope, but it becomes who you know and how you advocate for yourself. That is it. Because you've already done the hard work of getting the director level. You've already shown all these different skill jumps. You've already shown all this capability. Now you just got to hold that capability and be good with people. That's really it, because it becomes all about politics, director level and higher. It doesn't matter how great your company is. My company is great. There's still politics. Every company will have them. How you navigate them effectively will determine the success and progression of your career beyond the director level, period. It's the only thing that matters. So hopefully this is fun for you guys. So in my opinion, there are lots of different skill changes that take place over the course of your career. You do not have to make every single one of these jumps. You can get to senior manager and be like, that's plenty. I'm done. That's great. You could get to senior associate and be like, this is perfect. This is exactly where I want to hang out. Seems like an easy coasting to retirement. Do it. But if you want to progress, being able to articulate these differences and these changes over the course of your career is the key to that long-term progression and continued growth. You have to invest in yourself. You have to be willing to build the display of these skills, and you have to be able to articulate them to the people around you effectively. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck. So hopefully this was helpful. This gives you guys some direction. If you are ever interested in working with me, check out my website, thatcareercoach.net. You can buy my digital course there or sign up for one-on-one coaching with me. But as always, I'm Kendall. I'm That Career Coach. I appreciate you guys tuning in to today's episodes of Secrets of the Career Game. And if you like today's episode, go ahead and give us 5 stars. Leave your questions and comments below. Otherwise, we'll see you back next week.